So, welcome to another podcast, episode 41 of The Soulful Side of Life. This intro for my interview with Aliia Roza is going to be a little bit lengthy. Never have intros this long, but this woman has an amazing story from being a secret agent in Russia, and it's impossible to not give you some background on who she is and what she's accomplished. Um, Plus, I'm a wordy person. Um, so just bear with me as I give you some background on Aliia Roza, who was born in the former USSR into a Kazakh-Tatar family. Her grandfather was a national hero fighting the Nazis during World War II, and her father was a high-ranking military officer who spent 50 years in service to the former USSR and Russia. As a child, Aliia's father taught her gun shooting, martial arts, and special mental programming techniques. She then went on to be a part of a special government program for kids of high-ranking officers to educate them, raising them as perfect human weapons against state enemies. She was raised to be patriotic with the understanding that she would protect civilians and protect the Russian motherland. So at 18, Aliia was sent to a secret military academy of internal affairs in Russia, where she was chosen from 350 students to participate in a special secret program developed by former KGB psychologists and high-ranking officers and agents called sexpionage. And sexpionage is when you use your gender and the art of seduction, sex in a way to get information from the enemy, and get what you need from the other side. There, she was trained in the art of seduction, persuasion, and neuro-linguistic programming in order to get information from targets and to recruit them or terminate them. These secret KGB techniques have only been disclosed to a few military officials and top personnel, and to this day are shrouded in secrecy, but these techniques saved Aliia's life on more than one occasion. She opens up about her time in her life as a secret agent, her last mission, and the growth and healing that has had to come from that time. Since leaving her secret agent life, she has found it rewarding to give back and spends a lot of her time serving others. She founded a women's empowerment group called Rosa's Club that has organized more than 30 humanitarian events and assisted underprivileged children and women in London and Paris. And brands from Cartier to Rolls-Royce to Roberto Cavalli to the jewelry house of Gerard have supported her events. She is also an ambassador to Best Beginnings Charitable Foundation, where she met the late Queen Elizabeth II and King Charles III. She was also awarded the Women's Empowerment Activist Influencer Award by Forbes magazine in 2019 during the Cannes Film Festival and also at the Venice Film Festival in 2022. And in 2017, she was crowned Miss Asia, and she's been featured in Vanity Fair, Tatler, Forbes, and TMZ, just to name a few. In this podcast episode, we get into a lot of what it was like growing up in the former SSR, working in the Russian government and espionage, what that was like for Aliia, to why she became a Christian. She also opens up a little bit about in her training to become a secret agent, she was raped by her superiors and other men on numerous occasions, and why fashion is her passion. So, without further ado, enjoy this podcast episode with a former Russian secret agent, Aliia Roza. Thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you, Ali, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Your life is just like the word that I can think of is wow. That's what comes to mind. And like your first calling in the secret agent world is not for everyone. Not everyone is meant to do that kind of work. And I once dated a guy from the former USSR from Turkmenistan, and
Wow.
I found that culture to be quite challenging as an American dating someone from that part of the world. I found him to be quite closed and not
Mhm.
as friendly and approachable.
Yeah.
And I could only imagine what the training that you received is like a part of that culture of former KGB and that secretiveness versus as if you had maybe been born in America and you decided to go in the CIA, it would have it's just, different cultures that's around countries, but also this secret agent world. Before we jump into that, I want to just ask this initial question. For those who may not believe your journey, what do you have to say? Like, I listened to a podcast that you did this year, and you have like certificates of your schooling and training. So, but what do you have to say to people who don't believe your journey?
Well, I always say, everybody has their own opinion, their own truth, and it's respectable. We all different and we all have different tastes. But yes, of course, before giving any interviews, any journalist, any editors, I always provide my archive documents, my certificates, my birth certificate, so they can match the name. And of course, photos from the past, you probably seen it in social media. And we had sort of, I also, while we were recording that podcast To Die For with Neil Strauss, I also invited my former colleague who was an agent of the FSB, who actually also gave his own opinion about what's going on there. But again, people romanticize the world of spies due
Mm,
to the movies like James Bond, Salt, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, or Red Sparrow, which is understandable. And this world became so, just sort of like mysterious that people think that, it's like a movie. But unfortunately, this job is very hard. It's very dangerous.
mm,
And it's not that glamorous that, like, people think. Absolutely not. And it's, when I used to do it and everyone who worked there, I felt that patriotic feeling to really help and save people, civilians, the world, wherever it takes. And like, I know a lot of agents who really sacrifice their lives for um, protecting civilians from terrorist attacks. That time in Russia, there were so many terrorist attacks and bombs due to the Chechen war, and it was a really hard time. And if not this agent, then who would really keep this safe environment for, for people, for children? So I think it's very important, but at the same time, very dangerous job. And former agents, or obviously active agents, they don't really say about themselves. It's like, it's like heroes which you don't know. They live among us, they do their job secretly, but they don't speak about it. It's just the way the job is. You're always undercover, you
yeah,
know.
it's yeah, it's not for everyone. Jumping into like your early life. And kind of what I was touching on a little bit ago, I think Americans find Russia to be a mysterious place, because of our history with
Yeah.
Russia and the former USSR during like the Cold War. And especially if Americans haven't been around Russian culture, how was life growing up in the former USSR? And how would you compare it to like your son is growing up in the US? How would you compare your childhood to his childhood in these two cultures?
Thank you, Ali. This is a great question, actually, because the life in the USSR was, I would never understand if I wouldn't have this comparison. As you said, my son now grows in United States, and it's absolutely different cultures and lives, everything, people, mentality. USSR that time was communist country where I remember even my dad, who was that time high-ranking officer, not all kind of like scared, but he wouldn't be also able to share his opinion, or there was no like freedom of speech. Obviously there was no human rights or women rights at all, and women were treated, I don't know how is it right now because I haven't been there for years, but the time when I was growing up there, women didn't have any chance to say no. And obviously, they didn't have any opportunities to become and get like a really good job, like, the leadership. And I mean, we do understand it's a man's world, but in some countries like, and I do believe still in Russia and before that, like in Soviet Union, women were treated almost like, much less level, where they would be just almost like having servants positions,
Mm.
and treated in a really kind of like, very like manhandling way, where my life story, yes, there were a lot of missions and everything, but I guess, and I do believe so, if there wouldn't be such a manhandling, I wouldn't be sent to that missions. It was just man ego, right? And using the power of their, the power they had in the job where I used to work. Like my commanders, they just like took advantage of me and other agents and just used us for their own, reasons. I'm not just talking about sexual abuse and rape and, harassment. I'm talking about risking lives of your soldiers, of your agents without like particular reason. That was a really hard thing for me to understand at the beginning. But when I lost so many colleagues and I was myself sent to a very dangerous operations, eventually I understood that the whole world is so corrupted, and I just lost any hope, to be honest. And when I flee country and I started to see different countries and different cultures and the way how people live, and I used to live in Europe, like France, Italy, England, Switzerland, it was completely different world. And now in the US, I'm so happy my son grows here in this land rather than there, because at least he understands that this is the freedom, he has his rights, and it's so important. But yeah, it was really hard. In terms of also, like, I just want to add that I remember when I was a little girl, we had to stay in line for many hours in order to buy bread.
Mm.
So the level of poverty was so high that people were starving. And after perestroika 1991, I mean, like after USSR fall and perestroika began, it was the most difficult time for Russia, I do believe, which I remember very well, that, we didn't have food in shops, like you could come and there is no food. And so many homelesses, but unfortunately there were so many kids and teenagers homelesses, and they were starving to death, and it was terrible to see. And that's really, really sad. That was my childhood. That what I remember.
I remember the guy I dated, we talked about this a lot because although he wasn't born until I think 90, he wouldn't have remembered the hardships of like the homelessness and the not having money for food. But I would press him a lot of why do you think um what do you think the reason was for this hardship of the Iron Curtain falling? And why do you think that Russia and its former states didn't reach the level of success of like the US? And ultimately he said godlessness was the reason, because I don't think that the Iron Curtain fell because of the United States. I think more so it fell because of things happening internally
Yeah.
in former USSR. Would you agree with that? That it's godlessness of, even just in your training, and you talked about you were raped. Just, I don't think, and I'm not saying in CIA or FBI that women agents haven't been raped, but I think the morality and mindset of US, Russia, it's like godlessness is there of what makes Russia's hardships, just even poverty now that you see across Russia. There's
Yeah.
a lack of faith in God, and that's maybe one of the main causes.
Of course, and like if we're coming back to the history from the beginning of 19th century, when it was revolution in 1917 and Bolsheviks killed the Tsar family, the whole Tsar family, in my opinion, they almost like cursed the whole country because the Tsar family, the king's family, right? They were strongly believers in God and Orthodox Church. And then when Bolsheviks came to the leadership of the country, then they just basically started to create their own almost cult, where they removed from people's mentality the faith to the God, to like certain things, to a Bible, to Holy Spirit. And instead of that, they just gave them, just to fill up this gap, they gave them this sort of like um, propaganda, and they brainwashed them with their leadership, like Stalin and Lenin and all that leaders that time just created sort of that's your new god and you need to worship them. And in fact, when Stalin passed away, um, I mean, like if you go like back and see like who was really Stalin, and Stalin was almost like, if you would say right now, he was a scammer, really. He was scamming with his team banks, and that's how they actually came to the power. But not saying that people worshipped him so much that when he passed away, everybody, like millions of people during the winter, they came to outside just to follow, like to go to this funeral. And this is almost like insane because people were following somebody that they kind of like they didn't even understand. I mean, like it's so sad that in Russian DNA and all the post-Soviet Union countries, also people, they still believe that this is the leadership and like they need to follow this path without even thinking if is it the right path or not. Why? Because Navalny recently, before he passed away, he was trying to kind of like awake people and tell them like open your eyes, see what is going on, like you have to be free people, we live in democracy sort of, right? But still Mr. Putin is like our president for like over 20 years, like don't you understand what's going on? Like people wake up. And unfortunately, I think like, it's people have so strong DNA from the past that they are scared to talk. They're scared to open their mouths. They're scared to open their eyes and see and and listen what's going on. They just been followed for many years this propaganda, and Mr. Putin just basically kind of like got the same propaganda and installing this right now, and that's why people staying silenced. That's
Yeah.
all. That's my only one explanation. Of course, there is no belief in God. I mean, now it's sort of like I want to believe that people. I don't know really. I don't think they really do believe. Like they literally, like just remove the whole believe in God there from the revolution. So
Yeah,
it's
it's
crazy.
probably this weird view of God, probably even in the Russian Orthodox Church, or I don't know, maybe even in Islam in Russia. I don't know if it's because, in my understanding in former USSR from the guy I dated, the even Muslims could not. believe in God the way that Islam would teach you. It was controlled heavily by the state.
Yes.
So it probably it's some weird form still in Russia today of how much the religion can operate to its fullness versus the state coming in and controlling some elements of it. And I think Russian people have always been a people, excuse me, who have needed to be controlled by a stronger power. They had very strong monarchs, whether it's Catherine the Great or, you know,
Certain, yeah.
yeah, that the people can't really think for themselves and
Hmm.
handle democracy in the way that Americans think. So uh,
Yeah.
they've kind of held themselves back without realizing it. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so second question. You grew up in this military service family, and your father taught you shooting and martial arts and special mental programming. As a child, did you embrace and enjoy that kind of what your father, how he was able to bond with you and connect with you as his daughter? Did you enjoy that?
If I would be maybe if you would ask me the same question and I would be 15 years old or like 10 years old, I would say yes, of course. Because for every girl, daddy is a hero. And when I would see my dad coming, like wearing this uniform, with all these gold medals and, all these things, I was really impressed. And of course, I look up to him and I wanted to be the same and I want him to be proud of me. But right now, answering this question, I didn't see another childhood.
Mm.
I do love my parents a lot and we are very close, but certain things I cannot discuss with them. Like, for example, when Ukraine war happened and I strongly, you know, open up and spoke out about my position, my dad, he it's not because like he's bad or whatever, he is still so kind of like brainwashed by the whole system that he just doesn't get it. Like I couldn't explain to him certain like things which I understand and a lot of people from the West understand, from like, Europe understand.
Mhm.
But Russians living there, and also like I'm from Kazakhstan, like, and when you said about Muslim, like we're supposed to be Muslim, but my family never went to any, mosques or they didn't pray or something like this because they were raised and born in communism and they still have these habits. If you ask my dad, who like, do you believe in God? He would say, I believe in myself.
Mm.
Me personally, I do believe in God, and like at after the military, that was a really dark time when I just decided to baptized, and I did it for myself, and I just did it for my soul because I wanted to come to God because it was so. I just didn't know how to live because the belief which I had, the faith which I had in the government system just ruined in front of my eyes when I saw a lot of corruption and, bureaucracy, and that was not right. So the faith to God is very important. And I sent my son to a Catholic school. So,
Mm.
and he maybe doesn't understand it now, but when he will grow up, he will understand. It's so important to encourage our children to believe in God and live in the right principles. And also,
Why did you find Christianity had something to offer you versus Islam?
great question. I will tell you because I kind of like find Islam culture, unfortunately, not too close for me as a female because I, like I've been in Saudi Arabian countries and in many other countries where like Islamic countries, and the way, and like I don't want to say anything bad to any culture. I do respect everyone religion, but this is not really, my thing where the way female treated, like it's amazing that they're great mothers and wives and so on, but it's just not close to me because I believe in equal rights between men and women and in partnership, whereas due to different reasons, females sometimes choose position to be behind men's back and sort of like either, they're scared or they post traumas or they laziness, I don't know, or lack of education, I don't know, whatever it is, they just decide, okay, men will decide and I will be behind his back, completely dependent. And that's the problem, and that's what I teach my students, female students, when they come to me and they have like this problem with the husbands, boyfriends, or like they single. I always explain like every woman have to have a profession and at least that sort of income where she can sort her payments, her like, basic things for her comfortable life where she can pay for herself without depending from the man. I'm not talking like becoming like completely businesswoman and just like spend all your life for this. No, I'm saying that the woman have to have her own income and not depend from a man, because when this happens, then they switch the positions, and unfortunately, I mean, this is the psychology. The man can or cannot, but usually that's what happening in these couples where men then kind of like, it's also a lot of things on his shoulders, and then like they position sort of like, in a very different, like weight. So it's really hard. So I strongly believe and recommend that every female have to have a good education and profession. And in Muslim countries, unfortunately, even now, uh, girls, they don't have a possibility to go and study in the schools. How ridiculous is that?
Yeah.
And it's very sad, very sad.
I think like one of the big differences you see if you're talking about Christianity and Islam is that while it could be offensive to a lot of Muslims to say women don't have rights, they would say that's not true. You've been brainwashed by the West or by Christianity. You see in the holy books, if you just match up the holy books, the Holy Bible, the Quran, and the culture within both of these religions, you're going to see a very big difference between the two in how women are treated and how children are treated and how men are regarded in both of these religions. And it's just a matter of taking side by side, looking at their holy scriptures, looking at how people are treated within both of these religions, and you're going to see a very stark difference. Um, and I just say, look at the differences versus trying to debate back and forth, because you're not going to get much with debating, and it causes anger and tensions. But just look at what both do.
Yes. And you touched a really important thing I wanted also to mention. My grandma, she read for me Quran when I was a little girl, and then I read Bible. And when I compare, that's why I came to the, Orthodox religion myself, because when I compared these two important like books in the human evolution, I understood that, I cannot follow this. And at certain way, Ali, I thought that again, like without any like I don't want to offend anyone, but I feel like because of my Muslim background and culture and the way how my dad treated my mom,
Mhm.
he loves her a lot, but my mom always in the position of being a servant.
Yeah.
Like her life like basically is all given to my dad, and she does everything for him. Without her realization, she would never have like a work or profession or something, like even friends.
Yeah.
And growing up in that family background and having this family background, I kind of, in the military, I couldn't, because of my background, I couldn't say no, and I couldn't stand up for my body and for myself. And I think if I would be kind of like stronger in my mentality if my dad wouldn't push me to be so much obedient and from a man decision, because man is always right
Yeah.
and have to do what man says. This kind of like transported me into this position of victim where my commanders or my colleagues could take advantage of my body without my willing, my wish, and I couldn't say no. I literally was like frozen, and it took me years of healing work to actually get out from the victim position, because what happened before I was dating, I was in relationship, I would choose the abusive partners who would have sort of position of the you have to do what like my dad position basically. And I felt like a victim in this like in this relationship where I was constantly in this like pattern of being like being a victim and being dependent, and I just couldn't understand what's going on till I actually work on it and went through that. So it's very important how we educate our children, what religion do we give them, how we like we teach them with open mind or with narrow mind. And of course the religion is so important because it's just like it's everything. It's our future. Like we need to teach our children to grow and be curious and develop and going to the progress, instead of like what some of the religion do. They just close people's mind in order to control mass, and that's exactly what happened in Soviet Union.
Yeah. And that's what you're trying to get away from.
Yes.
I wonder if you would have been born in the US with a father who had the same background as your dad, and you had chosen to go into the CIA, if you would still be in the CIA now, because you would have had a very different, it would have been different culture, a different, American culture, a very different training to espionage
Mhm.
versus the Russian way. Maybe you would have still been in it.
Maybe because I spoke with some former CIA and FBI here, because we like while we was working on that podcast, and I heard interesting things that you know here. Well, there was a question basically, and it's in the podcast, like if CIA or FBI have similar program like in Russia, where they would just teach agents to do certain things for like different operations, like sex espionage, for example. And they said no, as much as they knew, of course, but no. And I do believe so, because I will explain why. Because people born in America, they have much free spirit and mind,
Mhm.
and they understand their rights, their human rights. And that's why I believe that it's not really possible here, unless they're like, I don't know, maybe some very rare cases. I will not go there, but it's not like a mass production, sort of like in Russia or like China, as much as I heard. So all this like, communist countries.
Mhm.
So I do believe that is more about um, working with more ethical, way, rather than just they look at agents sort of like just piece of meat and just throw them anywhere to any operations in order just maybe it will work, maybe it won't, let's see, maybe like it's just like they don't really care about you as a human being.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe I would still work and say, I don't know, who knows.
It goes back to the ethical, it goes back to the godlessness and the system of which you were raised in. So yeah, 18, you went to the academy for your espionage training. What was that like? And then how were you chosen to do specifically sexpionage?
So I was 18, right? I didn't have any idea whatsoever what it's going to be. I thought it would be sort of like a college or university, sort of, and it was in a way where we would study a lot and do a lot of, lessons, and we would learn a lot of skills like martial arts and all the like administrative law, criminal law, the history, of course, like what gadgets can we use, what not, how to do certain things. So like, gun shooting, of course, what like to do in certain situations, like, for example, it's a murder, terrorist attack, and all that. Of course, it was very useful and interesting, but I think like it's in the third episode of To Die For where I actually explain how I was chosen, because after some time I understood that for this special program they choose particular female agents who have to be like, under 25 years old, obviously single, mentally stable. So they would give us a lot of examination, like psychological examination. We would, they were like really silly questions, but according to that question they would like understand what's our level of intelligence, of mental sort of like health, how we would react in different situations, in a, like very dangerous situations, like what would be our reaction if something happens. And obviously like we would have a certain appearance, physical appearance. And I remember we only had 5 females in our class together with me out of like 350 students, but most of them they were men. But as much as I know, they had their own program for men agents, which I don't really know because it was secret program, and we couldn't share what we've learned there with anyone else, including friends, parents, or whoever. So it was just strictly for us. And Ali, I don't know, I mean, it's my blessing and it's my curse. It's I always analyze, and would I be different if I wouldn't go through that special training? Of course, I would, I guess, but it just made me who I am today. And of course, I had a lot of trauma, and I'm still working on it, and I have like still like therapists every week sessions. But in the end of the day, whatever happened with you in the past, it makes you who you are right now. And I don't blame anyone or any program or wherever, because like I wouldn't be who I am sitting right now with you and talking about the things if I wouldn't go through that path. And I do believe it was my challenge, and we all have tests, but if you're guided with the God and the light of love, the God will always help us. And I literally had almost like angels helping me to go through all these challenges. And
it was hard, especially the rape part, like because you think you're there for training for your country and that it would be professional, and there's in no way, shape, or form should one have to be raped to go through training. You may have to go through classes on what happens if you are raped. But it just shows like, just these dirty old men or young men who were justifying the training and that they could do that to a woman. And as you were saying before, because you grew up in this masculine USSR Russian culture, maybe also the Islamic part of your upbringing, you just kind of accepted it and took it. Like, did you say to yourself, this is not okay, like I'm being manipulated, or did you think that even though you were accepting it?
That's a great question. I think I was so when I came to my department, literally like in a couple of weeks, I was raped by my colleague who was high-ranking officer, and I got so scared. I didn't know what to do with that. I could go to my dad but like I knew if I would go to my dad, tell him, he would probably kill the guy, go to jail, and it will be all this drama happen, right? And then in the end, in the Muslim culture, whom to blame? A female, because female did something wrong that the man couldn't hold himself and control himself, so they would blame a woman. That culture. That's why they would say like, oh, that's why our women dress abaya and all this, like, things, because like men cannot control their emotions. I mean, hello, like, are you human beings or you animals?
Right. Yeah, God gave us self-control.
Yeah, exactly. Why, like, European men control themselves? Why, like American people control themselves, men control themselves, and like you cannot control yourself? Like, I mean, like, seriously? It's just because they feel the power. And when he raped me, he said, like, you can't go anywhere. Like, what, you're supposed to tell to your daddy? Like, and what, like, you'll be this, like, rat, this kind of like weak rat who would like go and blame or something. Like, what would you do? Like, I'm also in power, like, so you can't do really anything. And I just accepted that, and I had to go through this trauma by myself alone. And that time I didn't know about therapists or something like that. I just sort of like, ate it and just follow it. And I had this feeling for many years of being completely betrayed. And then when when my commander in the academy was constantly abusing me, and I felt that's the way it's supposed to be. I literally felt like, well, I guess this is how it should be, so I just need to accept it and just go with that. I didn't have any idea that it can be different.
You started to believe a lie, which you internalized that, and then you have to work that out through therapy, through prayer with the Lord, and get healing. It's not easy.
No, I still have difficulties with with relationship with men, to be honest. I still do.
I can understand why. My goodness. Your last mission, I don't know if at Cannes you saw the movie Emilia Perez. I don't know if you were there for the premiere for that.
Yeah, well, I think like, no, I wasn't actually at that premiere, so I haven't seen it, but I saw the trailer. I need to watch it, yes.
Yeah, and it's like, this drug lord, but completely different in the sense where he wants to become a transgendered woman. But I felt it's somehow similar to your story in the sense that your last mission, you had to seduce a drug lord, and he ended up helping you get away. Was your life in danger? And how was it going through that experience?
I think about this a lot since we started to work on that podcast, and I stored all these memories, and I never understood, I think, till now, because Vladimir at the time was like a little bit older, but like my age right now. So I was much younger, so I couldn't really understand why did he do this sacrifice for me. He could just do completely different things. He would just like say, well, okay, so finish her, kill her, and like I don't care, and like I will just do what I do and just stay in my comfort zone. And instead he chose another way. And I think I started to understand what does it mean love, a pure, real love that everybody wants to have in their life. And it's so beautiful, and it's just bigger than the life. It's I'm a parent, I'm a mother, and I love my son unconditionally. And if you would ask me if you would sacrifice your life for your son, right, in whatever circumstances, I would say, of course, like, without any doubt, and as all our parents would do. But sacrifice your life for a partner, for the love, would you do that? I mean, how many really people in the world can say, I would sacrifice my life for my beloved one? And I never kind of like understood it till like, I would say like recently, where I understood what really love is. And I think that's what he got, where we built that emotional bond. But of course, first of all, it was my job. Second, I was very immature. And third, I was very young and naive, and I couldn't really understand the things. I was doing things on a sort of like seduction level, as I was taught. And when I open up to him completely, that last night we saw each other and he looked into my eyes, and perhaps he just saw me being vulnerable and be the way I am and just accepting my path in life. I think that was the moment where he decided that, no matter what, I will just help her to get out. And he didn't really care about his future. Would he? And I that moment I thought like in his eyes I saw almost like he knew that he would be killed. But yeah, he did help me, and he did help me to escape. And I think this is the most powerful, beautiful thing we can ever experience, this love.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that must have been challenging to go through, but it seemed like he's someone that you really did care for. So, yeah, it's work, but it's also your real heart. So, my goodness. So now you help people. And would you say that that has been healing for you after you got out of doing espionage work? What made you start helping people, and how has it been healing?
Amazing question, Ali. I've heard that every single student or person to come for help to you, it's actually your reflection of your traumas, where if people come to you and ask for help, don't say no, because you can help. And helping them, you're helping yourself.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how I started to feel. After I realized that most of the gang was either killed and terminated and so on, then I started more like my public life in London. And I had this feeling where, I felt, and I still feel, that as much as I can, I want to help, but I didn't know where to start from. So I just started to organize these charitable events for, different foundations, like one for British Royal Foundation. And it was an amazing experience. And I worked with so many great brands, and I met King Charles and Queen Elizabeth before she passed away in Buckingham Palace. It was an amazing thing. And I felt so good about it, knowing that, money which I was raising through these events and donations would really go and help children worldwide. That's what like when you come home and you just feel so amazing and so happy doing that. And my son, when he was little, he would come to my events, participated, and see that it's completely different feeling. It's the feeling of it's bigger than, I don't know, whatever like you want to have in your life, any materialistic thing. It's much bigger than that. It's almost like it's priceless. You cannot even explain that. And yesterday, my friend, he has a charity for young artists. So they raised donation for those kids who are artistic and creative, but they don't have, or their parents don't have a possibility to buy them canvas or pens, pencils, all these things. So he does a charity, and I asked my son and his girlfriend to participate and volunteer, and they did. And we spent like this amazing day Sunday in Beverly Hills, like raising this awareness and bring kids together, and they would draw, and it was amazing. And it's just like it's such a beautiful energy. And then I got home with kids, and I was so happy, and I look at them, and they were like, it's this feeling where when you do something good, and it feels good, and this you cannot even express. It's priceless. This feeling is priceless. And then when I started to share my story publicly, when I basically started to really coach some of women who would come to me, they just started to come to me themselves, like through Instagram. But it was really like, some of the messages were so sad and desperate. I just couldn't say no. And I was thinking like, okay, so what can I do for them? So I started to talk to them, because like messages were like, I want to kill myself. Like, my boyfriend just left me. He called me ugly. I don't know what to do with that. Or like, my husband left me with a few kids. I'm like single mom. I don't have any income. Like, I don't know what to do. Or like, I was sex trafficked. I was abused. I still live in this trauma. I don't know, how did you do it? Like, how you like here, like in Instagram, looking like that? Like, I feel awful. Like, what did help you? And I started to ask myself, like, okay, what did help me? Like, how can I pass this knowledge to those women who really need it?
Yeah.
And then I started just to speak with them, and like slowly and slowly, like, it just became bigger and bigger, into like really like a club for women, where I would just like speak with them and support them, and just like some of them became my good friends, almost like a sisterhood.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing. So it's just amazing how the life is. And that's the whole thing, like, where I believe if somebody come to you with the request to help, like, you cannot say no.
Yeah. It's like the training that you had, to that you thought you would serve your country. You probably never thought you'd ever live in the West, but you're
Yeah,
helping
God.
women using some of those techniques in their relationships with men. And it must be so empowering for them and for you, just to, because sometimes, when someone hasn't shared with us, like if they're saying, oh, my husband's cheating on me or whatever, you might give them like a negative wisdom that brings healing or help. And yeah, you would have never thought, oh, this could be helpful for a woman with your secret agent training. Yeah.
Because Ali, the most important, and I always start this from, like, I mean, this is the beginning of the beginning. It's self-love.
Yeah.
Like, it's self-esteem, it's self-love, it's self-confidence. These things, we, like, of course our parents also, like, raise these things in us, but it also depends from us. It's our almost like aura, it's our belief in ourselves. It's like, like they say, like, believe in God, but don't rely on God, that the God will do everything for you. You need to have power within, and go with this power and love, like, in the world. And some of the, mostly actually, techniques, they're all based on this self-confidence, self-esteem, and self-love, number one. Because as an agent, if you have any doubts about your future mission, you would fail 100%. And they say, visualize, do affirmation, do meditation. There is a reason why. And it really helps, because, I mean, funny enough, we didn't study the law of attraction, but all our techniques were based on this strategy, programming our brain for a success. Even you don't feel about it right now, but you need to, like, believe, like Anthony Hopkins said, like, you really need to believe. Otherwise, nothing will happen. And that's only one belief guided me. This light guided me through this dark tunnel, and I'm here now. If I wouldn't have that belief, I wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah.
I just...
Yeah, and your will to fight. Okay, a couple of last questions. So you have a master's degree in fashion. Why did you feel you needed to go get a degree in that, and how have you been using it?
Thank you. Oh my God, fashion is my passion from the moment I was born. And there is a story behind it, why I wanted really to go to this particular university, Istituto Morgoni in London, and study the master, like, program. When I was born in Soviet Union, imagine that everybody would wear the same clothes, and it would be always very kind of like ugly in a way, because there was no shape, no nothing. And that yet it was the time when Chanel, was there, but nobody even would hear about Chanel. Like nobody would have any idea what is Dior, or all these like fashionable brands. And everybody would wear same clothes but just different colors. Or like they would live the same life, like same furniture, same cars, but same apartments, houses, everything the same. Like everything kind of like grayish and same.
Yeah.
And me, born with this sort of like, I don't know, creative mind, I would say, I was bored. I was bored looking at all these things, and I always thought like, you know what, like I want to like be different. I want to stand out. Like I didn't know how, and I feel like fashion is greatest way and very artistic way, very creative way for women and for men, of course, but like for all of us basically to um, express ourselves through fashion, the way we dress, the way we present ourselves. It's so you can like play with this. You can be like different mood, different clothes, like different things. And for me, this is the way how I express myself. And I remember I would just like started to tailor like small little clothes for my dolls, then for my sister, then for myself. Then I went to like a course where we would like learn how to tailor and stitch and all that. And then when I got accepted to the university, and I was thinking about this program, my dad pulled out the documents and he dropped me to the military academy. I said myself like so I didn't kind of like no, but I said like one day I will do that. And when eventually I realized, being already a mom, that oh my God, I still have time, I still young, and I still can study and do what I love. Finally, it's my freedom. Finally, I can do it. So I just said, you know what, like I moved to London basically for this education, for this program. And the whole life has changed for me dramatically, because then I started to work with different fashion brands. I started to attend fashion shows. And every time I would go to Paris, Milan, and New York fashion weeks, for me, it's almost like, I don't know how to explain. It's like a flight to the moon.
A dream.
It makes me happy. And fashion is a big part of my life. It's not just because like I dress like this or something. It's just it's art for me. It's just art.
It's a joy. And completely opposite from what you did before. Okay, 2 last questions. Do you fear for your life now? Do you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's still
absolutely
worry.
Of course.
Wow.
Yes, and there are many reasons why I actually open up now. And many reasons. One of the reasons, and I came to this insight recently, thank God. I'm happy to this. I spoke with Neil, and I'm very, grateful for him to provide me this safe space where I could share my traumas and be intimate with this publicly. Which I always feel like, I feel like my soul is naked. It's like so open in front of everyone, and it's hard. It's a big pressure. I ask for forgiveness. Not just from forgiveness from those people who already passed away because of my actions or my work, but forgiveness from anyone, because it's hard. And I just want to ask this forgiveness. It's almost like atonement for me to share this story and feel like I pay, and I pay the kind of like I remember those people who sacrificed their life for mine, and I'm here right now sharing this, because like if I would never share this story, they would be dead and nobody would know they actions. And it's not about the criminal Lord Vladimir, but it's a lot of about my colleagues who were working with me and who were killed in different operations. I just want people also to understand that these people who work there, they sacrifice their lives, and we don't know about that. Like we just literally don't know, because the government cannot, tell us. And they become unknown heroes.
Yeah.
And secondly, regarding my safety and security, that was actually advice of my good beloved friend who was my former colleague, and she passed away last year. She was an active agent. She actually supposed to give an interview for this podcast, but she died unknownly, which is also scares me, thinking that she may be killed. But before that, she said, when the war started and everything, she said, I got some approaches from the government to do some certain work. And she said, like, you will never get out from them till you will expose yourself as much as they would not see any benefit of like hiring you or like working with you or like sending you somewhere. You need to expose yourself as much as you can and speak out and tell your story, because in this case, this is your security and insurance. And now I understand why she said that, and I followed her advice. So yeah, there were like many reasons, but yes, I do have fears for my life, for my son, of course, and for my parents. But then, you know what? I was so inspired by Navalny and his wife Yulia, who's now got like arrest from Russian government, living in Berlin. I mean, how insane is that? I just got so inspired that it's very hard, but like you have to have enough courage to stand for your beliefs. Very hard, and not relying that people will follow you and get it straight away, because we all have different lives and mindset, and it's okay. But be brave enough and courage enough to speak out and share what you stand for. That's what it is, and I didn't do it for just like, creating a revolution or protest or wherever, it's just sort of like that what happened, that may happening right now. People have to be aware of these things and be, just see around and be open-minded and not to be manipulated by many things what's happening around us.
For sure. I think we don't realize, because we glamorize the world of James Bond and these spy movies, how much even just military soldiers or CIA type roles, how much it affects people, especially those who are working in special operations and the most secret parts of it, because it tears marriages apart. People die. I've got a friend who's a military sniper, and he's a vegetarian now. Like, he won't eat meat anymore. It's these little small things that I think people in these highly stressful jobs do to survive, to stay mentally sane. As small as I'm a vegetarian now, and you would think, oh, being a sniper is nothing, but every time you take somebody's life, even though they're the enemy, it affects you.
So, it does.
Yeah.
It really does.
And it messes with your head in a lot of ways. So I think maybe they tried to touch on it in James Bond, that he's an orphan, or he was an orphan child, and you can kind of see a little bit that it weighed on his shoulders. But unless you know somebody who's walked in those shoes, you can never really fully imagine. That's why these jobs aren't for everybody, because you have to be quite strong. Yeah.
I think like these jobs for more traumatized
people,
in the child, who were traumatized in childhood, because then it's easy to manipulate them.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think,
go ahead on. No, sorry.
No, I just wanted to add, like, not just to give them excuses or whatever, like, it's not just me who was raped there and taken advantage of. All of them, all the female agents were. And I know it for a fact because they would tell me their stories. And I feel, and we spoke with Neil about it, I feel like I mean, we think that this is the way how they traumatize and purpose female young future agents in order to control them. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like Stockholm syndrome. That's exactly what I had. I hated my commander, but I was so dependent from him that I didn't know what to do. I was completely lost without guidance. But at the same time, he was taking advantage from me every single time, and I hated that. But yet I sometimes caught myself where I would speak about him in a, you know, like in a highly way where like, well, but he was doing this and this. Oh, he taught me this and this. Oh, like, you know, I'm still still not grateful for what he done. And I think like this is exactly what they do. They traumatize these young people in order to easily control them.
And I'm sure this is happening in all governments and in all of those specialized training units. The crap that women have to take from men. A woman in my family had been stationed to Afghanistan, you know, when Bush sent the soldiers to Afghanistan, and she was just explaining in the U.S. military, the men soldiers were drilling holes in the showers where the women soldiers would, you know, shower, and watching them. And okay, that's not as bad as, you know, something maybe that you went through, but it's just what women have to go through in these roles, and it's harder for
it's very hard. I mean, we are female, we you know, like, we are creators, we create lives, we are like nurturing, and we look at the whole life in a different angle. Like if you ask any woman, would she want to like join the war or like be a soldier? Of course not. You know, we are created for this kind of things, for love and peace and raising kids, and this is our nature. And together, this, you know, female energy with man energy of like, you know, warriors and go and get and conquer, it's just it's two different things. It's I mean, we cannot, like, I will never understand this position, and men probably will never understand our position, which is okay. But still, I do believe in balance. And I truly really wish that more leaders of different countries should become female. And I think that it will create a safer and more peaceful environment for all of us.
For sure. For sure. It would be great to see more Western powers have women leaders. It would be interesting, just as we were saying earlier, compare the world under and see.
And also balance. I mean, like, you know, everything in the world is in balance, but we don't have balance here. Why? Why don't, you know, I think like men should also give us that
balance. I think also too, the women in our own countries, whether it's Russia or the US, we're not giving each other that balance. Sometimes women have the power to help other women get there.
Absolutely.
And we're not.
And that's what I stand for. Women should help other women. And it's so powerful. And again, I have like my own theory why women are like that. You know, competitive in a way. But there is a reason why. But yet I do believe that, again, like us talking about that and teaching young generation to unite, because then we are the power and then we are stronger, and like that's what really guides us, you know. Then I do believe this slowly but surely will change a lot of mindset in female unity.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for joining the podcast. You're so inspiring.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, and it was amazing to talk with you, and I really enjoy it. And thank you for your amazing questions, because that's really powerful. Like I'm happy we spoke about it.
Yes. Me too. I hope that you enjoyed this podcast episode and that you have found a soulful connection to the conversation. God bless you, and until the next episode, go bless somebody else.